The Mothman might be more than just West Virginia folklore. The Chicago O'Hare Airport sighting in 2017, we're starting strong with one of the most compelling modern encounters. In 2017, a United Cargo worker at O'Hare International Airport claimed to see a very large bat-like humanoid figure standing just beyond the fence. Then, with a terrifying shriek, the thing opened its wings, estimated to be nearly 10 feet across, and took off vertically into the night sky. Now, multiple witnesses reported the same thing that night, and yes, there are photos. Grainy, of course, creepy beyond. The footage hit Reddit and paranormal forums very fast, fueling theories that, the Mothman was warning of a future disaster. Many airport employees reported seeing the creature, some fearing job repercussions if they actually came forward. Now, despite investigations and public interest, the true nature of the creature remains kind of unknown. What do you guys think though? Point Pleasant Bridge collapse foreshadowing between the years of 1966 and 67. Now, this is the OG Mothman mystery. Over 100 people in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, reported seeing a winged red-eyed creature near the Silver Bridge over the span of a year. The creature was often spotted flying overhead or perching on the bridge. Then on December 15th, 1967, the bridge collapsed, perishing 46 people. Many believe the Mothman wasn't just a cryptid, but an omen. Many believe the Mothman sightings, which occurred, from November 66 to December 67, were a warning of the bridge to collapse, which happened again, on December of 1967. Now, some residents of Point Pleasant believe the Mothman either caused the collapse or was trying to warn them about it. I don't know, but author John Keel, who investigated the events, suggested that the Mothman sightings were a form of prophecy. While this one, predates smartphones, eerie photos and artists' renderings based on witness descriptions still are circulating, and they match shockingly well to more recent sightings. The Doomsday Mothman in Chernobyl in 1986. Now, in the days leading up to the Chernobyl disaster, some workers at the nuclear power plant reported seeing a large, dark, winged creature with red eyes, similar to the American legend of Mothman. Now, that's where it gets very chilling. The descriptions match Point Pleasant's Mothman almost perfectly. The connection of this creature to the disaster, has led it to being called the Doomsday Mothman. Now, the creature's appearance was linked, of course, with the disaster, with some believing it to be a supernatural omen of the impending catastrophe. Now, the sightings abruptly stopped after the explosion, but rumors of KGB cover-ups and missing surveillance tapes only add fuel to the fire. In addition to the creature sightings, there were reports of strange phone calls and nightmares experienced by those who saw the creature. No confirmed footage exists, but locals and ex-employees have leaked sketches and accounts that mirror other known sightings, decades and, continents apart. The flying humanoid drone over the Rio Grande. Okay, this one's not your typical cryptid, but it looked like kind of one at first. Now, in 2023, Border Patrol agents spotted what looked like a flying humanoid figure drifting eerily through the air over the Rio Grande. Now, it had no lights, no sound. It wasn't behaving like, any bird or normal drone. Now, turns out it wasn't. It was a surveillance drone, allegedly operated by Mexican cartels, used to spy on border agents in real time. But here's where it gets creepy. The footage shows the drone flying in total silence, hovering like a ghost with what appears to be long limbs and a body shape that eerily resembled, a Mothman. So News Nation covered the story with exclusive footage, and the comment section, while full of people saying it, gave the Mothman vibes. So while this one has a human explanation, it still taps into something darker, the idea that even our real tech is starting to look like our monsters. The Fresno Nightcrawler, or Mothman in disguise. Now, this one's debated, but stay with me. In 2007, surveillance footage from a Fresno backyard showed a tall, white, spindly creature walking almost fluidly across the yard. Many labeled it the Fresno Nightcrawler, but a lesser-known second clip from the same area caught what looks like a large humanoid figure gliding across the sky. Some researchers believe it wasn't the Nightcrawler, but the Mothman caught mid-flight. These two, clips together form a very chilling profile of something not easily explained. And yeah, the videos are still online, go watch them, but maybe just not at night. The Appalachian Tunnel footage. You're cruising through a dark Mountain tunnel when boom, a massive creature with blazing red eyes pops into view and leaps into the night sky. That's exactly what happened to a couple driving through the Blue Ridge Mountains in 2013. They spotted what at first looked like a large bird perched at the entrance, but then it turned, revealing glowing crimson eyes and launched itself into the air with like a really curdling screech. Now, pure nightmare material. It ended up on TikTok stories of Appalachia channel with the caption, "Laughter and the vision of a tall dark figure with glowing red eyes," reported by locals on cryptid forums describing a blurry dark shape gliding between the trees, its glowing red eyes visible even in the daylight. It's not your standard owl. It was, silent, huge. It didn't fly like any bird known to science. Critics chalk it up to optical illusions or hoaxes, but for those who watched the clip and heard the scream, it felt like something straight out of a nightmare. The Japanese disaster omen right before the Tohoku earthquake and tsunami that devastated Japan in 2011, there were online reports and even one security cam photo of a massive flying figure seen near power plants and coastlines. Some individuals claim to have seen a large black winged creature with glowing red eyes near the Fukushima plant before, during, or after the disaster. Now, these sightings were interpreted by some as confirmation of the Mothman legend and its connection to disaster, suggesting the creature was, bringing on the event basically. But others dismiss these claims as misinterpretations, of ordinary phenomena due to the stressful and chaotic circumstances surrounding the disaster. Japanese forums exploded with chatter about a dark angel or a flying spirit. Now, while Mothman isn't, native to Japanese folklore, the descriptions were almost identical. Critics called it fear-based hallucination, but believers point to the pattern where disaster strikes, the Mothman shows up first. The Arizona Mothman incident. Now, this is a bit of a story time one, so stay with me, okay? This comes from someone on Reddit. The user, who goes by the name Christopher Cry, said, "I was in Flagstaff, Arizona in July of 2020 looking to spend the night in my fifth wheel trailer near Lake Mary, which is about 5 miles outside of Flagstaff. I had just driven up from Phoenix. It was about 10 p.m. and I was tired, wanted to sleep and get up the next day and find a spot in the National Forest where I would stay for the next couple months. I pulled into a side road near Lake Mary and was going to sleep in my fifth wheel still connected to my truck. It was pitch dark with no lights anywhere and tall pine trees all around me. I get out of my truck and head towards the door of my fifth wheel when I see these two glowing red lights up to 20 to 30 feet in the pine trees. I had no idea what I was looking at, so I just kept staring at it. I thought maybe they were those red airplane warning lights, but I concluded that they definitely weren't and were a lot closer than I originally thought. They seemed like eyes and were slightly swaying back and forth. I got the intense feeling like I was being watched and got so spooked that I decided to get the heck out of there and ended up parking and sleeping in a Walmart parking lot. I had never heard of the Mothman at the time. Years later, I heard about it and the red glowing eyes matched what I saw that night. I also read of other sightings of the Mothman in Flagstaff area. I'm pretty sure it was the Mothman.
Number 5. Ghosts and the Men in Black. Our first story comes to us from the internet's front page and a very reputable trusted news source, Reddit. A thread was posted asking Redditors, those who've encountered a cryptid, what happened? Now, it's worth a click through, there's a lot of good stuff in there, but our first story comes to us from a user, Amazing Banana. He describes being at a park with his partner, stargazing and enjoying the night. The park was smack dab in the middle between a little suburb and on the other side, some dense foresty area. As the two were sitting and cherishing the moment, making precious memories, our storyteller heard something coming out of the woods that sounded like somebody stomping around. Concerned about something suspicious happening, he looked up to try and see what was going on. He described seeing something walking around, hunched over and walking on 4 legs, wearing what looked like a white cloth over it. Naturally, he was pretty confused, so he asked his partner to describe the same creature as she looked at it, saying it also looked like something draped in a cloth. Scared and confused, the pair took off to their car to take off and leave behind whatever they'd seen. From here on, the two of them went out to another park to collect their bearings and saw a strange black, unidentified flying object that looked like a helicopter, but the OP said it didn't look like any vehicle he had ever seen before, describing it looking more like one of the vehicles from Avatar or Halo Reach. He said it flew in a way unlike anything he had ever seen. So what exactly was this? Was this a UAP and an extraterrestrial that they encountered in the park? Or perhaps, and this is just speculation on my end, could that have been a cryptid they saw, and the vehicle he saw afterwards was some sort of special government vehicle sent in to collect the sample? You know, black helicopters and the men in black, that kind of deal. The creature described could be something called a kune-kune, a Japanese urban legend of a cryptid that manifests itself as a thin, white sheet like a floating ghost. Now the OP never specified where the post was coming from, so who's to say? We may never know. If you like cryptid videos and you like UAP videos, I have got boxes of cryptid and UAP videos. Just check them out on the channel, and hey, toss a subscribe if you're feeling generous. Number 4, the Enfield Horror. Enfield, Illinois was supposed to be just another calm, regular old Midwestern town. Sadly, for the residents, it would be plagued by cryptid sightings, its most famous being the one named after the town, the Enfield Horror. The Enfield Horror was described as a short, squat beast with 3 legs, 2 small arms, and bright eyes like flashlights, standing a bit under 5 feet tall. It has leathery, wretched skin and is not the kind of thing you ever want to see. The first spotting of the creature was in 1973 by one Henry McDaniel, a local Enfield resident. One night at around 9:30, McDaniel and his wife returned home to their children, telling them they'd seen something scratching on the door. Later in the evening, McDaniel heard something scratching at the door as well. He went out to see what it was, expecting to see just a neighborhood dog, but instead was greeted by the entity now known colloquially as the Enfield Horror. McDaniel fired at the monster and claims he did hit it, but the beast shrugged it off and hissed back at him, and then bounded away in long leaps across the yard. He reported it to the police, who came to investigate, and they didn't help too much, but what they found was concerning. 6-toed footprints and patterns in a 3-footprint pattern. And later that day, there was another report of someone else being jumped by a creature that seemed remarkably similar to the creature described by McDaniel. And this is far from the only 2 sightings of the Enfield Horror. After this initial encounter, sightings popped up pretty frequently around Enfield. No one ever found the Enfield Horror, and whatever it was has never been confirmed. So it could still be out there. Number 3, Wolfman. Of all the monsters out there, especially like the Universal monsters, you know, my all-time favorite are probably werewolves. I don't really know why, just absolutely loved them. I used to draw them in my homework as a kid all the time. I really wanted to be a werewolf. I was bizarrely obsessed with them, so I'm a sucker for anything about them. Take a listen to this story here. A reporter on BuzzFeed asked the BuzzFeed community if anybody had any interactions with cryptids, and this story shared had me howling. That's a little wolf pun for you. Okay, sorry, let's get into it. One night when there was a blood moon, I decided to try and get some good pictures and went to a secluded spot just outside of town. Pulling in, I noticed a tree had fallen by a nearby creek, right about where you'd park your car to fish. I started setting up my scope and camera, and I heard a lot of rustling around the brush. Coyotes are common enough, and I had my pistol on my hip, so I didn't pay it much mind. The rustling soon became more akin to something violently chasing through the woods. At this point, I stopped what I was doing and shined a light to try and see what it was, but I couldn't see anything. I was off-put by the sounds, so I started to pack in my stuff to leave when I heard some splashing. I turned on my light and I drew my gun, flashing it, and then I saw it. This 6-foot-tall thing with what looked like the face of a wolf, but was too big to be a wolf or a coyote. It was as tall as I was. As the light hit it, it growled and charged at me. It barreled forward and disappeared into the cornfield. I left all of my stuff behind, and I came back the next day to find a farmer and some sheriffs. The farmer's sheep had been eaten the night before, so he'd been setting up trail cams and came across all of my things. I told them about what I saw, and they told me it was just a bear. But the tracks were definitely not a bear. Could that have been just a bear, and in a flash of fear and panic, he mistook it for a cryptid? Or could this have been a werewolf sighting, and he should have brought some silver bullets? Number 2, a Ningan. A Ningan is a cryptid I'd never heard of before, but after reading about it, I was instantly fascinated by it. It's described as a humongous, blubbery, whale-like creature, but there's a lot of variations on the creature depending on who's telling the story. Sometimes it's depicted as being kinda cute, to be honest. It looks a bit like a seal, beluga, or a dolphin. And sometimes it takes on a more humanoid, terrifying shape, kinda like a merman sort of deal. Interestingly, Ningan is a Japanese word for human, implying that it should be more humanoid in description. It's described as being anywhere from 20 to 30 meters long, oof. And sometimes it's described as having a mermaid-like tail. Other times, having hands and hind legs. Basically, one of the few recurrences across all the legends is that it's got ghastly pale, white, blubbery skin, and is described as having a very blank face, with black eyes being one of the only notable features. They're first described around the 20th century, with most sightings of them occurring around the 2010s. There was a possible sighting in 2006 when people said that they found evidence of a Ningan swimming under ice on Google Earth, but from satellite photos, it can be a bit difficult to ascertain if that's actually what's going on. Still, reports and stories of this thing keep popping up, so it could still be out there. And finally, at our number 1 spot, Chupacabra. The Chupacabra is one of the most famous cryptids out there. Its name translates to goat sucker, and depending on the tale, the Chupacabra comes in many forms. Most often, it's described as being a quadrupedal, canid-like monster. But some depictions also describe it as being bipedal and more humanoid in appearance, and some of the really out there descriptions make it out to be like a little alien goblin looking thing. Over the years, there have been several reports of people who claim to have seen the Chupacabra, and even people who claim that they've felled the legendary beast. Most of these sightings though get attributed to coyotes with mange, which give off a sickly appearance and definitely do look demonic. Time and time again, the Chupacabra is debunked as just an urban legend or a misunderstanding, but goats keep going missing, goats keep getting found with all their blood drained, so what's going on? It's spotted all throughout Mexico, Puerto Rico, and the southwestern United States, always propping up around livestock being drained of blood. So are there really a species of souped up super predator dogs out there? Recently, and maybe you've seen this weird photo going around, a strange bipedal furry-like creature caught international attention online when it was picked up by a trail cam just outside of a Texan zoo. Now there are some who claim that it could just be someone wearing a costume, but it looks a little too spindly for that. As well, skeptics raise that it could just be a coyote standing on its hind legs, which would make sense, but it does look a bit alien. It doesn't really have the stature of a coyote. I'm gonna be honest, if it looks like anything, it looks the most like it's Crash Bandicoot than it does a person in a costume or a coyote. So could this be the elusive Chupacabra? It's occasionally described as bipedal, and maybe it would explain why it's so elusive if it's able to sneak around like this. I just hope we get some answers on this thing. Number 5, Snow Wasset. Coming up first on our list of icy cold little critters is the Snow Wasset, a fearsome, legless little cryptid and a local one to boot, so I had to include it. Anything that comes from the greater Canada area is a big deal for me. It winters by the Great Lakes and the Hudson Bay, and in the rest of the year crawls up to Newfoundland and Labrador. Totally the wrong time of year, buddy. You gotta go to Newfoundland in the winter for Jig's dinner. Anyway, a Snow Wasset is like a weasel. It's a long, furry creature, except it has no legs, except in the summertime where it does have legs and also turns green. If I was a biologist, I would love to get my hands on this thing and figure that out. That particular part of the lore of this creature is really fascinating to me. Why would a creature shed its legs like baby teeth? What cruel joke of evolution is that? It's like a mammal sandworm. Anyway, I gotta move on. When it's in its legless, winterized form, it burrows deep beneath the snow and ambushes its prey by surprise and drags them into the frozen underground. Absolutely horrifying. A frozen, legless, furry little snake is not pleasant by any definition. A wasset is said to be 4 times as large as a wolverine and 40 times as hungry, requiring a vast amount of meat to keep it sustained. Doesn't shed enough calories shedding those legs. I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm so hung up about this, my ghouls, but I am. Maybe it's because there's not actually that much information about the snow wasset out there. Sightings and stories about it date back mostly hundreds of years, and there haven't been too much buzz about them ever since. Perhaps they're extinct. Or perhaps they've all just burrowed under too deep where I can't see them. Either way, the only thing that really stood out for me is they turn green and have no legs, so I'm gonna keep banging on that. And hey, when it's this cold outside, what do you really need to go out for? Stay inside, order some food, turn the heat up, and keep watching Top 5 Scary for the rest of the night. And while you're there, maybe think about tossing a subscribe your way if it's not too much trouble. Number 4, the Knucklevie. Coming up next on this list is the Knucklevie, a cryptid that I had never heard of before researching for this video, so I hope it's new to you too and you get to learn something cool. The Knucklevie is an old Nordic myth, a demon of the sea appearing as a horrifying demonic, part horse, part man, part thing hybrid. Seriously, this thing is disgusting. It looks like somebody glued a bunch of leftover horse parts and man parts together, and it's completely skinless, leaving its exposed flesh to all the elements to see. Kinda looks like one of those behind the scenes video of how they make McDonald's chicken nuggets, you know? The Knucklevie is said to be trapped in the sea during the warmer months of the year, and then come winter is set free to wreak all kinds of havoc. This thing is pure evil, destroys just by breathing. The horsey head part emits toxic fumes just by opening its wretched maw, and this vapor causes crops to wilt, people to fall ill, and drought soon follows after. I see why they keep this thing locked up for most of the year, because it kinda sounds like a royal nuisance. It's thought that the Knucklevie was first created by old Nordic storytellers as a way of rationalizing rationalizing and explaining away things like drought and plague destroying the harvest. It's much easier to put a face to your problems, and when that problem is a wretched flayed horseman, it's easy to get angry at that. When stories of the Knucklevie were told, it was thought to be so evil that its name was always said in a hushed whisper for fears of speaking too loudly of it could attract its attention. Oh, I wish I knew that about 2 minutes ago. I just said its name like 16 times very loudly. It's said that if you're ever to encounter the dread Knucklevie to find the nearest fresh body of water. This sickly creature of the sea is deathly afraid of fresh water, I guess. You'd think a creature with all that skin exposed wouldn't like salt water or the cold, but hey, there you go. To each their own. You do you, terrifying skinless monster horseman. Number 3. A Chennu. A Chennu is an Algonquin creature of folklore a bit similar to a Wendigo, but with some fun regional twists. While both creatures hunt in wooded northern areas, and are both commonly associated with the wintertime, a Wendigo is usually depicted as a stretched out, emaciated monster, whereas a Chennu is depicted as being massive, very furry, and only getting larger and larger the more it eats. Actually, reading that back now, I realize that's not terribly impressive. Most things get larger and larger as they eat. Much like a Wendigo though, a Chennu is thought to have been formerly a man who was turned into a beast, either through their greedy ways, refusing to feed the starving, or for those who give in to the darkest of temptations and consume human flesh willingly. A Chennu is described as looking like a cross between an old man and a beast, large and imposing in appearance, with big chunks of their own flesh missing, possibly self-inflicted. They cover themselves in the forest, hiding themselves with leaves, bark, snow, pine needles, until they look like a horrible lint roller of the woods that walks upright. Interestingly, unlike a Wendigo, it's thought that the process of turning into a Chennu can actually be reversed. There's some good news. In some folk tales, the way to cure a Chennu is a special medicine that can cause them to vomit up their frozen heart and vomit up the flesh that they've consumed, causing the afflicted to revert back to their human form in a sight that is no doubt disgusting for everybody. But if this isn't possible, if you don't have this medicine on hand, or it's just not feasible to trick a Chennu, you can also get it to eat salt, which will apparently melt it from the inside. Poor Chennu. You're forced to live a tormented existence as a snow monster, isolated from your former friends, doomed to hunt on your former species, consuming only the darkest meat available, and you can't even order a little bit of salt for your dinner, eating a totally flavorless diet. I got nothing but sympathy for you, Chennu. Number 3. Kamataichi. I think it's really fascinating what each culture's cryptids look like, you know? Each culture creates cryptids and they all put their fun little spins on it, and whenever I get to make these videos, I learn all sorts of really cool mythological stuff that I'd never heard of before, and I sincerely hope you get that out of these videos too. I'd never heard of this next one, the Kamataichi, but I am obsessed with it now. Coming to us from Japan, this yokai, which is like a Japanese type of demon, appears like a weasel except with razor sharp sickle-like claws, like a real-life Sneasel from Pokemon. I'm actually amazed there's no Pokemon directly based on a Kamataichi. They seem like perfect for it. They have spiny fur, similar to a hedgehog, like prickly little needles, but they bark like a dog, and their claws could not be any sharper, and they're sickle-shaped. And also, a lot of depictions of them are downright adorable. These funny little creatures are extremely lightweight and have learned how to ride the currents of the wind to travel. They honestly sound kind of like radical in like a California surfer way. The legends of the Kamataichi come out of the Chubu region of Japan, when vicious cold winds were so powerful they would cut people down directly. And these legends would take the form of the spirit called the Kamataichi, which was the winds themselves as this furry little miscreant. It would attack at your legs, causing you to fall down, exposed and helpless, while it sucked at your blood. It's said that no blood occurs from their woundings because of this, as a Kamataichi moves so quickly and sucks it all up. That's almost considerate of it, doesn't leave a stain. These creatures move so quickly, and they're so good at hiding, that they're apparently completely invisible to the naked eye, appearing as nothing more than a sharp, freezing wind on your skin. Amusingly, there's some debate as to whether or not a Kamataichi's true origin is actually nothing more than a silly pun. There's a stance samurai would use called a kamaitachi, translating loosely to sword stance, which would explain, you know, it's a sharp thing. I don't know where the stance comes in, but it's sharp. However, there are legends all throughout Japan, throughout many regions, all telling stories of creatures that ride the wind and attack humans, and the sickle weasel remains among the most popular and among the most adorable. Sorry, Kamataichi, you are just so cute. If anybody knows where to get like a stuffed toy of this little guy, please comment under the video. I need to know. Number 1, the Yeti. Coming in at the number 1 spot, a mainstay of any trip to the mountain, the Yeti. I mean, who else could possibly take the number 1 spot on a list about winter cryptids? Maybe Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Does he count as a cryptid? I guess he was. Maybe he's more like a mutant. Anyway, a Yeti is an American manufacturer specializing in outdoor products such as ice coolers, vacuum insulated drinkware, and Oh, I'm reading the wrong one. So, sorry. Let's do that again. A Yeti refers to an ape-like creature thought to live in the mountains in the Himalayas, standing upright like a man and walking on two legs, and is usually pretty big, like 8 feet tall, with long arms, broad feet, and long brownish hair and sunken eyes. It kind of sounded a bit like me, to be honest. While it's pretty common to draw a Yeti as just being like a big giant white gorilla, they're actually pretty different, and most traditional depictions of a Yeti color it with darker fur. They're probably one of the oldest cryptids out there that's still talked about so fondly, with stories of Yetis going all the way back to 326 BC, when Alexander the Great sought out to capture one to see for himself while he was conquering the Indus Valley, although he was told that no Yeti could survive at an altitude low enough to meet him, and Alexander wept, for there were no more Yetis left to conquer. It's got several names. It's sometimes called a Sasquatch, or in the West it's popularly referred to as an abominable snowman, although that's a term by British officers who were stationed in the Himalayas, as no natives to the regions call it that. The name Yeti possibly comes from the Tibetan words Yete, meaning a man-like animal, or from Meti, meaning bear in some Nepalese and Tibetan dialects, which would make a good bit of sense, as it's thought that a number of Yeti sightings over the years that led to it being such a widely recognized cryptid could actually just be bear sightings being mistaken in the frosty air. In fact, there's a theory that Yeti sightings are from hybrid polar bears that had bred with grizzly bears, which has been recorded to happen, just not really anywhere where Yeti sightings are really made, so kinda up in the air. In Sherpa tradition, it's said that a Yeti is a powerful, mystical being, and a Yeti can choose to whom it will make itself visible to, choosing to only appear to those who believe in it. So if you're ever trekking the Himalayas and worried about an attack, here's a little advice for you: just don't believe in it. Although there are a good number of people who believe that the Yeti are an intelligent enough species that just want to be left alone to their own devices, living peacefully in the mountains. Not so abominable after all.
Number 5. Bigfoot. Bigfoot is perhaps the most famous cryptid this side of the Loch Ness Monster. He is found in the forests of North America and is often described as a bipedal, large, muscular, ape-like creature who is covered in dark red, brown, or black hair. Sightings of these incredible creatures have been reported for centuries, with variations of this creature appearing in several indigenous tales and legends, and reports of Spanish explorers claiming to see some circling their camp in the 16th century. Ever since then, sightings of the creature have been a consistent but often unprovable sight, with only ever grainy footage and blurry photographs being presented as evidence. Some people believe that these sightings can be explained as bears that have been mistaken for other creatures, or even escaped apes from zoos who have taken up residence in the forests. Of course, there are also a fair amount of hoax sightings where it turns out to be a man in a costume trying to get attention or sell their fraudulent photos. But is there really a secret species in the forests of North America? With so many sightings that can't be explained, it's hard to not at least keep an open mind.
Next up, we have the Loveland Frog. Hailing from Loveland, Ohio, this massive-sized creature is said to resemble a humanoid frog, walking on 2 legs and standing at just over 4 feet tall. So I say massive, but I'm talking massive by frog standards here. What's great about this particular cryptid is that there have been multiple spotted at once. The very first sighting happened back in 1955, where a man spotted what he described as 3 short humanoid creatures with frog-like faces under a bridge. One of them also had a bar-like wand device that emitted sparks, leaving a scent of alfalfa and almonds. What an oddly specific smell to describe. There weren't any other reported sightings of this creature for another 17 years, but these 2 sightings happened in a span of just 2 weeks and were both reported by police officers. I always get more interested in cryptid or paranormal accounts when police officers report on it. It's not like it's, Chuck from the hardware store being like, yeah, I saw a frog man. Sure, cops have lied. I think we all know that. But making a report about spotting a frog monster in the middle of the road is, it's an odd thing for a cop to lie about. Anyway, the second sighting happened on March 3rd, 1972, where Officer Ray Shockeye, what a name there, eh? Ray Shockeye, spotted a 4-foot-tall humanoid creature with leathery skin and a froggish face, which he saw hop over a guardrail into the Little Miami River. The second sighting happened 2 weeks later, where an officer named Mark Matthews, boring name, spotted what he thought was the same creature before firing at it and missing. This is said to be a false version of the report, with the official one being that he did hit the creature only to discover that it was a large iguana and not a mutated frog monster, but that seems far less likely to me. I smell a cover-up and it needs to be solved. Later on in the month, a local farmer also claimed to have seen the elusive creature, so there you go. So look, I'm a total frog freak, I love the little hoppy guys, and I for one much hope that this thing exists, and I think it does. If I ever find myself a trip to Ohio, I'm driving straight to Loveland, where I'm just gonna scour every pond there is with a giant net, and I'm gonna catch him.
Number 3. Mothman. The next cryptid is said to have spent his time around West Virginia in the mid to late 60s, scaring locals and possibly even predicting local tragedies before they happened. In November of 1966, 2 grave diggers were practicing their trade in a cemetery in Clendenin, West Virginia. It was a dark and stormy night, but these men had worked in a graveyard for many years and were not easily spooked, or so they thought. When they looked up into one of the trees, they saw a strange man-like figure perched in its branches, watching them. He had glowing red eyes and gigantic 10-foot wings, and even after the initial shock wore off of the gravediggers, they reported feeling an intense sense of dread and foreboding due to his presence. A few days later, 2 young couples were making a day trip in their car near Point Pleasant. While they were driving near a former military munitions site, a figure matching the description given by the gravediggers swooped down from the sky and started to chase the vehicle. As sightings of the creature continued to come in over the next year, the creature was dubbed the Mothman by the local papers. Some of the locals believed that the Mothman was living in a vacant nuclear power plant outside of Point Pleasant and was possibly the escaped product of some kind of accident or secret government experiment. The dread-inducing encounters and sightings suddenly came to a stop in December 1967 when the Silver Bridge, which carried US Route 35 over the Ohio River, suddenly collapsed due to a faulty suspension wire and the weight of rush hour traffic. 46 people lost their lives in the tragic accident, and the Mothman suddenly disappeared. This led to theories that the Mothman showed up before disasters as a horrifying omen of approaching doom, with similar creatures being reported in other places before disasters, such as in Chernobyl prior to the famous disaster there. Is this creature really an omen of approaching doom? Or is there some other explanation for this terrifying and dreadful apparition that terrorized the inhabitants of the Point Pleasant area in West Virginia?
There is said to be a strange creature stalking the swamplands of Lee County, South Carolina, that being a big 7-foot-tall lizard man. On the 14th of July, 1988, sheriffs of Lee County were called to inspect damage done to a vehicle parked outside a home right next to the scape or swamp. The vehicle had large tooth marks and scratches on it. Once the story hit the news, a teenage boy by the name of Christopher Davis came out to make his own report to the police, saying that just 2 weeks prior, his car had been damaged, only he had actually seen the person, or rather the thing, that was responsible. Yes, it was our titular lizard man. Christopher described the creature to be a massive, 7-foot-tall creature with 3 fingers per hand, red eyes, and green, wet, scaly skin. He had been driving home from work one night when he got a flat tire. When he got out of his car to fix it, he saw the creature making his way towards him. Abruptly got in his car and started driving off, but the creature was so fast that it caught up to him, driving at 64 kilometers an hour. That's about 40 miles per hour for the Americans in the audience. And Lizard Man is now on the roof of his car, scratching at it. Christopher quickly hit the brakes, causing the monster to fly off his vehicle before finally making his escape. When news of this report hit the papers, it caused a frenzy. Lizard Man was the talk of the town. More and more reports started coming in. The local radio station offered a $1 million reward to whoever could catch the beast, so hunters started flocking to town to try and catch it. Stores in the area began selling Lizard Man t-shirts. It was Lizard Mania! And local sheriffs began writing off the supposed encounters as bear sightings, because if there are 2 things that look eerily similar, it's definitely a furry bear and a big green scaly lizard monster with red eyes and no hair to speak of. A bear? That's the best they could come up with? I'm not buying it.
Number 1. The North American house hippo. Our next cryptid is one that every school child in Canada has heard of and has spent many a sleepless night worrying that they will cross paths with. These strange and frightening creatures bring an aura of terror that cannot ever be truly understood by people in a foreign country. However, I will try to help you understand what it is we are dealing with. Imagine, if you will, it's nighttime, in a kitchen just like yours. All is quiet, or is it? The North American house hippo is found throughout Canada and the eastern United States. House hippos are very timid creatures and are rarely seen, but They will defend their territory if provoked. They come out at night to search for food, water, and materials for their nests. The favorite foods of the house hippo are chips, raisins, and crumbs from peanut butter on toast. They build their nests in bedroom closets, using lost mittens, dryer lint, and bits of string. The nests have to be very soft and warm. House hippos sleep for about 16 hours a day. House hippos are extremely hard to spot. They enjoy admiring their reflections, hoarding socks, helping themselves to your devices, and annoying your pets. They're small creatures, only about the size of a hamster, and chances are most Canadians have one living in their household and don't even know it. House hippos are extremely intelligent, which is why they are rarely, if ever, found caught in mouse traps or other devices meant to capture typical household vermin. The house hippo is so rarely seen that many people believe that the creature is simply an elaborate hoax. But the rare person to encounter these creatures will never forget the sounds they make before charging and attempting to bite off one of your toes. Just how many house hippos are out there, and where did they come from? We may never know for certain.